Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. So, we are coming to Adventure Sprite. This is my favorite Sprite variant, although I don't think it is the best one. I think Twin Sprite is probably just a stronger deck, but I really like Adventure Sprite because I really like the Adventure engine, and this takes advantage of the Nimble engine as well, which I'm also a pretty big fan of. Also wanted to start with this deck because it highlights not one, but also two of the unlimits that have come on the recent ban list. We have Rite of Armistier going from 2 to 3, as well as Sprite Jet going from 1 to 2. Now, I do, of course, plan on featuring other decks this season that are playing both Jet and Rite of Armistier, but I figured, hey, let's go ahead and start with this one. So, Adventure Sprite, for those who are unaware of the synergies between the two packages, the main one is that we're really not using our normal summon for an effect literally ever, except for exactly Nimble Beaver. I believe Nimble Beaver is actually the only normal summonable monster, or rather, the only monster we have that has an effect on normal summon. So, we're not missing out on anything by including the adventure package, and indeed we get to set up our Wandering Griffin Rider before we combo off into Sprite plays. There are some other synergies as well, notably Fateful Adventure and Nimble Angler, and why it is not only not bad to open Nimble Angler in this deck, but why I've even almost played a third copy. That's because if you pitch the Nimble Angler to the Fateful Adventure, you will in fact get the Angler effect to summon 2 Nimble monsters from the deck. Now, I'm on 3 Nimble Sunfish here, which is not something that you always see. Most people are on 2, a lot of people are on Nimble Manta. I still don't really know the answer to that. I think Nimble Sunfish is just the better card between the two, especially if you're playing Ninja Shadow Mosquito, because it does make OTK lines with that a lot easier. But we're on 3 Nimble Sunfish here, again, mostly because we are on the Adventure package. If, for example, we open Fateful Adventure and Nimble Angler, of course you don't have to open the Adventure, you could also open Rite of Armistier or the Water Enchantress as well. Then what you can do is you can, as I said earlier, use the Fateful Adventure effect, pitch the Nimble Angler, search a card. Angler will get the effect, you can summon out 2 of your Sunfish, and then what you can do is you can turn those 2 Sunfish into a Sprint, send your other Nimble Angler, and then you can summon the 3rd remaining Sunfish alongside the Nimble Beaver. So now you've turned this one card into not just 2 level 2 bodies, but actually 2 level 2 bodies plus a rank 2, which will allow you to instantly go for Gigantic, and that alone is enough bodies on board for a full Sprite combo. And I do mean a full Sprite combo. So we're also including a bit of a Melfi package here. That's also why we're on such a high deck count. 44 might seem like quite a bit, and it is, to be fair. However, we do have a lot of cards that we're not trying to open with here, such as the Melfis, such as the Nimbles, although again, opening Angler is actually not that bad. Honestly, opening Sunfish, also really not that bad. As I've said a million times on this channel, and is definitely very true in this deck especially, it's not really bad to ever open any level 2 monster in a Sprite deck, because any level 2 plus any other monster period is a full combo in this deck. And that's one of the reasons why I like Sprite so much. Even though we are in a meta that highly values 1-card combos right now, and Sprite is inherently a deck of extenders, meaning it's inherently a deck of 2-card combos. Again, the actual exception to that is Twin Sprite, which is why it's the best Sprite variant, in my opinion. However, because it is so easy to combo with, again, any level 2 monster plus literally any other monster, probably more than like Wandering Griffin Rider, but that I think is still what makes Sprite a contender even in a meta like this. We are also rocking the SP Little Knight. I don't remember if I've played this deck since SP has come out, but that is another kind of like newish addition to the deck. If I think I might have done one profile since this card's release. I can't quite remember, but yeah, I think all the same, this is, like I said, my favorite Sprite variant. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I really have to say. I guess not about this deck in particular, but Sprite Jet to 2, I think, is an excellent move. And it is nice to see Konami finally starting to undo the Sprite hits. Now, if Nimble Beaver, if this card ever goes back to 3, then I think this might be one of the better Sprite variants, or maybe not exactly Adventure Sprite, but really Nimble Beaver to 3 would allow pure Sprite to be a thing again. These are things that if you've kept up with my Sprite videos, you've heard me say all this before. But Nimble Beaver to 1 was such a blatant hit from Konami, telling the players, all right, you guys need to play something else because you need to keep buying new packs. It was pretty clear that they wanted to have Sprite continue to be a support for future archetypes, as the Gishki stuff wasn't out just yet. And of course, Gishki Sprite is a thing. So I think that Konami likes the idea of Sprite being able to support other archetypes, but kind of doesn't want pure Sprite to be a thing. I think that's why Nimble Beaver and, of course, also Swap Frog went to 1. Swap Frog, the frog engine in general, is not something we've played in quite some time. And I don't even think it was Swap Frog going to 1 that killed the frog engine. It was Frog and Beaver. If Beaver was at 3, I'd probably just jam the frog engine again. But really, if you ask me, the true culprit here is, in fact, Ronin Totem. I am not the biggest fan of the TCG ban list, but there are a few times where I do think they hit the nail on the head, and Ronin Totem is one of them. Ronin Totem has historically been the card that enables ridiculous frog FTKs, or super summon spam combo lines, and indeed, I think if you just banned Ronin, then well, okay, here's the thing. Beaver can already come back to 3. Jet could come back to 3. Blue could also come back to 3, with Elf still legal, and it would be completely fine. I think if you then ban Ronin, Swap Frog, and possibly even Totally Awesome could also make a return from the ban list. Elf is an interesting card. This is a card that a lot of people have been like, oh, when are they going to ban Elf? It's about time, isn't it? And I think at this point, really, people are just kind of saying it because TCG and OCG has banned it, but Master Duel is not. But one of Master Duel's greatest strengths is that it is, in fact, its own separate format. And really, I don't think that Sprite Elf is so strong that it requires a ban. I don't think it's doing anything particularly ridiculous. It is a fairly good tool for a lot of decks, but I don't even buy the argument that a lot of people make of oh, it's too generic, you can slot it into anything. Because while the material requirements are fairly easy, I'm not going to argue that. This is, for all intents and purposes, generic requirements. It's not hard to have a level rank or Link 2 monster on your board, especially when everyone's playing a certain level 2 monster, right? But I think that it's not even just about, are you able to summon Elf? It's can you summon it, weave it into your combo line without eating too many resources from your main line, and also, will it actually be worth it? And I think there are only a few circumstances in which that ends up being the case. I mean, hell, look at a deck like Monadium, right? That deck doesn't even play Elf all the time, and that's one of the decks where it can most easily incorporate Elf into its main combo lines, outside of Sprite, of course. So that's just my 2 cents on Elf and Sprite bans as a whole. I see a lot of people say, or not as much anymore, but I've seen in the past a lot of people say that oh, well, Sprite stuff could get unhit if Elf just gets banned. And I think Elf is completely fine. That's, again, just kind of my whole stance on that. I am also known Sprite fanatic, or a known Sprite fanatic, rather, so I guess to a degree you could take my words with a grain of salt. But, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I had to say about this list and Sprite as a whole. Let's go ahead and break the list down card by card, and then we'll watch some duels. So we are on 2 Effect Veiler, 3 Nimble Sunfish, 3 Maxi, 2 Nimble Angler, 1 Nimble Beaver, 1 Melfi Caddy, 2 Sprite Blue, 2 Sprite Jet, 2 Sprite Red, 2 Sprite Carrot, 1 Melfi Penny, 3 Ash Blossom of Joy Spring, 2 Water Enchantress of the Temple, 1 Wandering Griffin Rider, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 2 Triple Tactics Talent, 3 Rite of Armistier, 1 Dracoback the Rideable Dragon, 1 Fateful Adventure, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 2 Sprite Starter, 1 Sprite Gamma Burst, 1 Sprite Smashers, and then 2 Infinite Impermanence. And that is going to be our 44 card main deck. For the extra, we're on 1 Herald of the Arclight, 1 Merry Melfi's, 1 Melfi of the Forest, 2 Gigantic Sprite, 1 number 2 Ninja Shadow Mosquito. We have 1 Downward Magician, 1 Divine Arsenal, Zeus Sky Thunder, 1 IEP Masquerena, 2 Sprite Elf, 1 Sprite Sprend, 1 SP Little Knight, 1 Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax, and then finally 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. That is going to do it for our list. Let's see some games. Alright, so our first duel is going to be against Vanquish Soul, but more than that, and I'm actually going to take a pause here at the beginning of the game to give my little spiel that I want to give here. I know a lot of people don't like when I pause, but I do have to stop and say this. More than being a Vanquish Soul player, our opponent is a fucking racist. So you might have noticed that our opponent's name is blanked out. I've done that in editing because our opponent's name is incredibly offensive to people of African American descent. And really, honestly, I don't feel comfortable displaying that on the screen. Honestly, I usually just go ahead and like get rid of games where this happens, and because I certainly am not trying to give that any kind of credence here. But I do want to say that, and I've said this before, I've even made a YouTube short about it. I think it's one of 2 shorts I've ever made. The fact that you cannot report people for awful usernames like this is absolutely ridiculous, and in my opinion, just one of the current failings of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. The fact that Konami has not addressed this at all, despite being brought up by the community multiple times as well, I think is also pretty horrible. Anyway, let's watch us kicking this racist ass. How about that? This is actually, looking at this hand, not going to be a game where I'm doing like the typical turn 1 combo, but we are going to lead with the right of our Messire. We don't actually have any real Sprite plays here, but you're going to see how we're going to be able to make some plays all the same. Going to use the Called By on their Max C here. Good stuff. Going to summon out the Adventure token. Of course, placing the Fateful Adventure as well. After that, I'm going to triple attack, and I'm actually going to draw 2. Normally, I hand rip. However, with a hand like this, I really wanted to find some more plays. Like, yeah, I could have just ended on the Adventure setup, and then I think I also had the Imperm, right? Not the Ash Blossom? Yeah. So I could have ended on that if I really wanted to. However, I saw the opportunity. I figured I'd take it. I also figured that, like, 1, our opponent probably doesn't have another response, and 2, I can also summon Wandering Griffin Rider, even if they do. But here, you might have noticed I didn't draw any Sprite monsters, but I did get Nimble Angler. And we're going to see exactly what I was talking about in the... Okay, so this is a game where we do a turn 1 combo. Okay, I actually totally forgot that... See, I had that notion, but then I saw the opening hand, and I was like, is this... Did I misremember? I just assumed I misremembered, but anyway... So as I was talking about in the profile here, we're going to send the Angler, make the Sprend F, send the other Angler, summon out the 3rd Sunfish and the Beaver. I failed to mention too in the profile, one thing I really like about doing it this way is that you also get a lot of deck thinning, and you don't have to worry about top decking like your 3rd random Sunfish or whatever, right? So that's pretty cool. Also, it's really important to do the deck thinning in a deck where you're like pretty well over 40 cards too. But yeah, we're going for the Gigantic, then we get to pivot into the Elf. You do, if you're gonna make Sprend, you need to make Sprend before Elf, unless you're gonna put Sprend in one of Elf's zones and keep it on the field. Because it can be easy to forget, but remember that, like Elf, Sprend cannot be used as a Link Summon, or Link Material to turn it as Link Summon. So, that's why we make Sprend first, and then use it to make Gigantic, and then make Elf. Basically, again, you can keep Sprint on the field as long as you make Elf. You just want to make sure Elf is in the extra monster zone, so it gives the target protection, right? But yeah, we'll use Starter here for Carrot because we have Imperm. We did our Melfi engine in there as well, so here's the Caddy, summoning that. Boom, we are good to go. Alright, they're going to lead with Raisin here. We're going to use the Melfi Caddy's effect in response. No need to Ash Blossom because I have Imperm down, and I'm just going to use that instead. The racist who went to chain the Caesar Valley is here. I decided to use the Wandering Griffin Rider because I figured there probably wasn't going to be a much better opportunity to do it. Even if they did have like a Sacred Soul or something in hand, I still have the Ash Blossom as well as Sprite Carrot. So I'm like, you know what? I think we're pretty good as far as like follow-up responses. And we're about to get another Omni on the field in the form of the Herald of the Arclight as well. So all the more reason I say to use the Wandering Griffin Rider here. Here the racist is going to bait out us with the Raisin, but unlike them, I'm not an idiot, so I remember that the Raisin I literally just negated is there. Gonna summon the Pennies to get off with the Caddy, and then go into the Herald of the Arclight. Or no, sorry, I go for Mary Melfi's here, right. So the reason I went for Mary Melfi's in this particular situation is that I already saw them reveal Bryceheart as well as Dr. Madlove, so I'm like, okay, their hand is just like not plays, right? These both need to be normal summoned, or I guess in Bryceheart's case, need to have a Kashira to be able to do anything, and that leaves them only one more card to make plays. If it did end up being Unicorn or Fenrir, that would be pretty bad for me. But I figured even if that's the case, then I can use IP to make SP and still be fine. Whereas if I had made Herald of the Arclight, I would have needed to use IP to make Avermax. And I mean, that honestly would have just been fine too, but I figured this, I don't know. It's weird because both plays kind of end up being fine, but I feel like this one was a little bit safer in a more of a roundabout way, if that makes any sense. So, alright. Yeah, I guess they just moved the battle phase in a very weak attempt to intimidate us, much like their god-awful, horribly racist username. So, yeah, again, I normally this isn't something that I usually do. Normally I would just not include a game like this, but I saw this, I was like, I was like, one, this is a good opportunity as any to address this thing that really needs to be addressed. Two, you know, we get to have fun talking about this game as we, you know, absolutely obliterated this horribly racist person. And three, this was such a good game, I could not keep it. So, okay, now that we have taken care of that duel, let's go on to the rest here. Okay, so our next opponent is going to be on Lab. It's a kind of more floodgatey Lab. It's got like the power stone things or whatever, and the rivalry, but whatever. I don't know, because I feel like there is a part of me that wants to be like, grr, floodgates, but at the same time, it's like, who cares, whatever, it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, they're part of the game, but they shouldn't be, but I have always kind of been I've been an advocate for a balanced amount of floodgates, which I think Master Duel is doing a fairly decent job of so far. That probably sounds weird to people, but, I mean, here's the thing, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. If there were no floodgates or back row decks in general in Yu-Gi-Oh!, then literally every deck would be 20 engine pieces, 20 hand traps, which people also really seem to not like. So if you value deck variety, which a lot of people seem to do, then you should support back row decks existing. You don't have to like them, but, you know, just acknowledging that, like, hey, a healthy meta does have back row decks in them. Anyway, this is going to be another, I guess, kind of typical turn 1 combo line. I don't know. What even is a typical turn 1 combo line in this deck, really, right? I guess, really, it's, like, Rite of Armistier plus a way to go into Sprint or Gigantic. I don't know. Alright, Melfi of the Forest. Really, I guess, Sprint, because Sprint then goes into Gigantic, so, you know. Always gotta weave in that Melfi line. The thing about the Melfi line is that you don't have room for red and carrot, but I think that's fine, because Caddy is a lot of versatility. It can be an Omni, or it can be a bounce, so... And the Herald of the Arclight also has the minor banishing effect as well. That could potentially come up. It's always satisfying when the turn combo line, like, almost fills up your board like this, too. It's so good. Okay, so here our opponent's going to use Arias. I should have used Call By here. I did misplay. I missed that, because I thought they would be able to use the second effect. I just, like, I did read the effect, but I just glossed over it too quickly. And I was like, wow, really? That's broken. Okay, guess I can Call By it, but no. It's except Arias the Labyrinth Butler, right? So if I had used Call By there, they would not have been able to use the Arias effect here. Although we do see they have a Coup Clock anyway, so it's like, the Karma Cannon would be a threat pretty much no matter what. They're going to normal summon the Ariana here. I'm going to chain Melfi Caddy. They chain Arias. I'm like, fine. And then Welcome Lab. I'm actually also just going to say fine to that, because we did see them set the Daruma Cannon here. So I know that for sure my priority is going to be to stop that. I know I have both the Griffin and the Carrot, and then now I'm about to make an Omni as well. But I figured that I don't think that's a reason to start shotgunning all of your negates super early just because you have a lot of them. I think you definitely do still need to be smart with them. So I'm going to use the Carrot on the Karma Cannon, and then I can just use the Elf to wheel the IP back to the board. Now, this does mean that I'm not going to be able to make the Avermax, which is actually kind of notable here. It's a little bit of a pain, but I'm not super concerned about it. It's like, again, we have enough resources on board. I think we'll be fine, even without Avermax. It's funny, before Karma Cannon came out, using IP to make Avermax was actually a really good play against Lab, and a lot of the times they just were not able to out that kind of a Towers-like effect, but Then Car Mechanic came along and just removed a Dex weakness, so that's fun. Anyway, Little Knight, gonna make that here. I'm actually gonna prioritize protecting the Elf though, even going so far as to banish my Little Knight. Here, I'm gonna use the Griffin Rider on the Nadir Servant. I was a little hesitant to do that, but I was like, you know, I don't want to call by the extra deck monster and then just have them use a piece of furniture, like... Yeah, I figured I'd just play it this way. Anyway, my opponent did play this very well, but don't worry, I'm just the luckiest player in the world, peeling an Ash off the top of the deck to negate the big welcome. They do have a rivalry, and we're going to have to play under that, so I'm going to call Thunder. However, I can definitely OTK with what I have on board already. That is to say, Elf with an activation. Elf for blue, blue for Jet, Jet for Smashers, Overlay for Gigantic, make Carrot, then use the Gamma Burst. I will say, I was actually kind of low on time. Like, I had about 60 seconds left at this point. And I could have and should have. Like, that was enough time to bust out a calculator real quick and do the math. But I actually went into this attack not knowing if this was going to be lethal or not. But I figured, like, whatever. They're in top deck mode and I have a Carrot. Even if it's not lethal, I probably still have this. Like, I'm kind of trying to think of a top deck my opponent could have had. I don't know. It couldn't have just been, like, normal Ariana. Well, I was going to say normal Ariana, add Welcome, battle over Carrot, and then I'm kind of, like, in a not great place. But no, they already had an Ariana in the graveyard. So I could have just used Called By on the Ariana in the graveyard. They would have brought back Arias, but that wouldn't have been enough to get them out of... Yeah, no, even if that was off by a few hundred points, I think we still would have been fine. Even if they had ripped Ariana. And I think that's the best possible top deck they could have had. At least the one I can think of off the top of my head. So, anyway, 2 more games to watch. Let's see the next one. Okay, our next opponent's on a really weird build of Floowandereeze. There's so many weird one-of cards in here. Like, some stun cards, Prohibition is in here for some reason. We're playing one of, like, the Simorgh field spell. 1 Dark Ruler no more, 1 Evenly, 1 Lightning Storm. I don't know. It's the kind of build that, like... really makes me go yuck. It's not the kind of build I'm a fan of, but here I'm going to lead with the Adventure Line. They're going to chain the D-Shifter, which is definitely pretty brutal. It's funny, without the D-Shifter, I would have had a full combo here, but, you know, it is what it is. I'll just set up the Wandering Griffin Rider as well as Melfi Caddy, hang on to the Ash Blossom and Nib in my hand, and then pass over to them. So here they're going to use the Pot of Prosperity for 6. I actually decided to use Ash Blossom here. I don't normally Ash Prosp, even if it's for 6, but the fact that they led with Shifter, I was like, it could be Cash, could be Flu, but it could be Stun, and if it's Stun, I will have wished that I used the Ash Blossom here, so I decided to hedge and go for it. They do reveal themselves to be Floowandereeze, but they don't reveal too much in the way of gas here. A lot of those random one-ofs there, including Rivalry of the Warlords, which are going to end up taking. Here's that Simorgh field spell, setting a monster and 2 back row before passing. I was like, okay, set monster is pretty interesting. So obviously we know one of the back rows is Rivalry, but we can also just Griffin Rider it. I'm going to use the Fateful Adventure here to grab the Water Enchantress. Here is that Rivalry. We're definitely going to use the Wandering Griffin Rider in response to that. Because unlike the last game, I don't have, like, an already established Thunder monster on the board to be able to lock myself into that, right? Okay, Water Enchantress. Yep, Drinkaback bouncing the face down. Now, from here, I get to go into Sprite play. It's going to make Sprind with the Caddy and the Water Enchantress that we specialed. Sprind F to send the Nimble Angler. At this point, I'm like, okay, the back row's taken care of. All that's left is a face-down monster. That's not that much of a threat. We can definitely combo under it. So I was feeling pretty relaxed here. I'm like, you know, I don't really think that this is going to be anything too bad. It's just Floowandereeze, so we'll make the Gigantic. Gigantic for blue. I figured, if anything, I should blue for Jet. And then, now here was a decision point. I was like, okay, I can either get Gamma Burst to really ensure I have lethal, or I can get Smasher and banish the face-down card without flipping it up. And I did think for a bit between these two, and I was like, you know, I don't know, it's Flu. How bad could the face-down be? I'm just going to get Gamma Burst and just make sure I have lethal here. Move to battle, Gamma Burst with the Jet, and it's the one of Fossil Dyna. The one of Fossil Dyna. So brutal here. But I'm like, okay, you know what? They're in top deck mode. They're going to have to peel something. They find a duality, and duality just hands them, yeah, literally anything they would ever need to come back, so. I just conceded at this point. It's not even just losing to Flu, although Flu is literally my least favorite deck to play against. But I think what really gets me is that, like, our opponent is just, in my opinion, on completely non-optimal deck build choices and just 100% did not get punished for it. But, you know, that is to say, you don't have to have, like, the most optimized deck in the world to rank up in ladder. All you really need is above 50% win rate. So, you know what? It is all, I don't know, it's all good. Like, yeah, it was a little frustrating in the moment, and I thought I'd include this game in the video because it was funny, but, like, honestly, at the end of the day, you just gotta let losses like this kind of roll off your back, you know? And it's just Yu-Gi-Oh! You know, sometimes your opponent just top decks what they need. Sometimes they might not be on an optimal build and just get what they need anyway, but it's like, whatever, it happens, so. We do have one more duel to check out before the end here. Let's see that. Okay, our final opponent is on Mathmech. They're rocking the Spirit package, as well as Evenly's, which, I don't know. I don't mean to criticize all these opponents' deck building choices. The first opponent we will 100% criticize for being a fucking racist, but, I don't know. Like, when it comes to deck building choices, that's obviously a much less egregious offense. Here, I'm going to get Max Seed on the normal summon of Melfi Caddy. Obviously, I would have just thrown out the Sprite Blue otherwise. Oh, you know what? I remember this opponent. So, okay. I'm going to Max Seed in response to the Circular, of course, right? Circular summons. I get the Draco back. I'm actually going to also use Caddy here for Penny. And then Penny F, of course, to summon and then sink into the Heraldry Arclight. I'm going to do that right now. And I got to pause here, because although in the replay, my opponent just threw down the Synapse Mining right away, in the actual game, I thought they were going to time me out. It was bad. Okay, so I feel a little less bad criticizing this person's deck building a little bit, but no, I thought it was bad. Like, I legit thought it was going to be a timeout, because it was like over, I looked at the clock, it was over 2 minutes without a play. And then Synapse Mining came down. I was like, oh, we're still here? Well, okay, cool. All right, whatever. Synapse Mining pitched a super fact, and then they conceded. Which, like, I don't know. I probably should have even kept this game, to be honest. It's a total non-game. I could have just ended the video after the last one, but I like having 4 games, and I thought it was funny, if nothing else. It's like, you can dish out the maxis, but you sure can't take them. And that's actually not the first time I've encountered that either, so I don't know. I will say, though, even timing out is still a less egregious offense, in my opinion, than the first opponent. But anyway, that is going to go ahead and do it for this video. Thank you so very much for watching it. Let us move now to our outro. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. That means a lot to me. It's also a great way to support the channel, so thank you very much in that way as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways, like the very special patrons that I am thanking here, you can do so by checking out some of the links in the description. One of those goes to the Patreon, where you can join these fine folk and support the channel that way. I do post daily content over on Patreon, so you do get something for support there. And if you're interested, I also have a coaching tier option as well. Details again will be on Patreon in the link below. Also in the description linked below is my Twitch page where I stream a few times a week. You can go ahead and check that out, follow or subscribe over there if you ever want to catch me live. You'll also find my second YouTube channel if you feel like subscribing over there to watch some of the Twitch VODs as well as some additional non-Yu-Gi-Oh related content that I make over there. Again, any of those links you want to check out is all a great way of supporting. But again, even if you don't do that, just watching was also a fantastic way to support. And once again, I have to thank you so very much. But in any case, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out, and I'm hoping you have a fantastic day.